Hello, and welcome to the ABG Sundal Collier Private Company Seminar. My name is Olof Cederholm. I'm an industrial analyst with ABG, and I have a particular focus on the electrification of the transportation sector. With that, we're very happy to have ChargeNode with us, and founder Christian Sandahl, founder and CEO, I should say. And we'll be doing a presentation for about 15-20 minutes with some Q&A to follow. With that, Christian, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. As you said, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called ChargeNode that most of you haven't probably heard of. We're quite new, get back to that. And what we do is large scale EV charging, and that's both AC and DC charging for vehicles, not just personal vehicles, which the market is aiming for. And we don't do either at the moment home charging. So charging at your home, yes, but that's in large scale homes, not in singular homes. Okay, next slide. Great. So what we have is a patent pending charging technology, and to summarize that is that we scale fewer chargers to a larger amount of parking lots. We've been on the market since 24 months, more or less. We have a quite small annual revenue for this year, about 6 million euros. 60 million SEK, but we have in this short time period that since we started delivered more than 4,000 charging outlets, and we've just closed the Series A round where we raised 150 million SEK. That's about 10 million euros plus. From Formica Capital, also based in Gothenburg, as we are. And as we said, we don't sell charging boxes like all the others on the market. So we sell a charging system or a charging station more of. And our business model is a hybrid. It's both software and hardware. Where the software is agnostic to chargers, but where we sort of sell our charging systems. And we focus, as I said, on large scale charging or large customer with large scale charging needs. And you can see on the slide here that we have a mix of customers that have those needs. Okay. Next. Yes, so most of you probably haven't heard of us as a company, but you must have heard of the big change, this mega trend that is happening now, and that is related to electrification. So it's happening now, and we see 4 major contributors to this. And the first one is the UN climate goals that was put up a few years ago, and how that is enhanced with more and more governmental stimulations towards this electrification, and that is done differently in different countries. But for example, in Norway, which is the foremost EV country, they subsidize the cars there, whereas in Sweden, which is maybe on 3rd or 4th place, we sort of subsidize the charging infrastructure. Also, the public opinion is changing rapidly, and it's not a matter of what type of if you should buy a chargeable car or a electric car. It's more of what type of electric car you should buy. If we just go back 2 years, this wasn't at all this clear. And also driven or related to that, the automotive industry has finally sort of woken up on the broad scale. So all more or less automotive companies have a huge pipeline of electrified cars coming in the coming quarters. And to pinpoint this again, during this series 1 discussion, we heard a few times actually that we're a part of this decade's biggest mega trend, which is building and sort of building this infrastructure and to be a part of this new ecosystem that must occur. Okay, next. Okay, so this is on the picture here. We see how charging infrastructure is set up in the usual way. So you have boxes or poles sort of on every parking lot, and you can sort of understand that you really need to compete on aesthetics here. So all those box suppliers compete with a nicer box, with a smaller box, with a less expensive box to be able to take a market share. And we're of a totally different opinion on what charging infrastructure should look like to look good or to melt into the environment, instead of putting up those technical devices on all parking spaces. Yes, and the key issue here is large scale for us. So yes, you go from a few parking lots that you're able to charge at to more or less all parking lots should be able to sort of deliver charging to the car. And the invention here is based on that, okay, when you charge your car on a daily basis, you only charge for maybe 1 or 2, maximum 2 hours. And then the car is still sitting there on the parking lot for at work maybe 10 hours, or at home, or at a hotel for maybe 24 hours. So the utilization of this infrastructure is really just a part of the available hours. Okay, next. So here you can see the way we do this instead. So we put up or develop a railing. So you don't have to dig up your parking lot to put all the cable infrastructure to the ground. And instead you put just all the cabling that we have in this railing, and you put just your cable or your socket where you have the parking lot where you want to charge the car. This is one way of doing it. And this is quite aesthetic. It melts into the environment. The other way to do it is to put it in light bollards. So you sort of integrate this infrastructure with the lighting for the parking lot. And the other way is to also integrate it directly to the wall. So for example, in a garage, this is the right bottom picture, you have this railing just fitted onto the concrete wall. And in this way, you could build really large scale charging infrastructure without having the need to actually have the limitation of the your house electrical fuses, which is in most cases actually the limitation of how many chargers you could put up. So the limitation in power supply is one hurdle that this solution solves. It also solves that you more or less have when you have the need of charging, you end up with all those charging stations are blocked by cars that either charge or in worst case are plugged in, but they don't charge because they're fully charged. And with our system, you can more or less put charging possibilities to all the parking lots. The way we do this is also quite sustainable, as we don't put up, technical electronic devices on every parking lot. It's rather a central hub. And we also, and we hope you disagree, that this is more aesthetic than the design of the, no matter the design of the charging boxes. Okay, next. So to summarize this then, our system is scalable. It's scalable as all of those central units could service from 9 to 54 parking lots. The way we do this gives the opportunity to use the existing grid cable from the net supplier in a much more efficient way. It's sustainable, as the lifespan for our system is more 15 to 20 years instead of a couple of years where this almost computerized plastic boxes are out in the environment and needs to be replaced every now and then or serviced, which is sort of limited where we have a steel casing with all these electronics inside this steel casing. Okay, so this gives us for the planet less environmental impact. We can supply the market with more charging points without the limitation of the power grid. This gives you a much lower total cost of ownership. We'll get back to that, but as we have this lifespan over 15-20 years, this is sort of best in the market. And through this thinking, we can also deliver sustainable profits. Okay, so we've spoken a little bit about the hardware here, but we also have a software platform, and that's the next slide. So to support this hardware, we need a cloud-based service that handles all the needs for the user, and that's both the person who charges the cars, and that's also the company or customer that buys or invests in this infrastructure. And all these needs we have to meet, and we meet this by being at the moment a one-stop shop or a single point of contact supplier for the customers. And there's a lot of technical things here. I don't see the point actually of going into that, but software, both app-wise and portal and cloud-based wise, and also software in our hardware is key to make this technique work. Okay, so then the next slide, please. And here we get back to one of those points that we really see our as a competitive edge, and that's the total cost of ownership for us. And we've just compared, or actually a customer compared us with the different suppliers, and you can see here that for a 15-20 year calculation, we are somewhere between 2.5 and almost 4 times as cost efficient compared to all the other competitors in the market. And without going into this in detail, you can say that the components that we use to build this charging infrastructure is standardized components that we don't integrate to a circuit board, rather than putting them into a larger steel casing where you can maintain and service this technique throughout the years without just replacing the whole box or the technique on every single parking lot. Okay, so what's the next step for us? Next slide. So in Sweden, we've sort of established ourselves as one of the fastest growing in the market, and without saying that we have the leadership, we're at least leading the technical development by having this system thinking where you could service and remotely monitor the whole system, not just the charging boxes. We're up for a market expansion, and the first country out is obviously Norway. This is the most mature or the country with the highest penetration of EV cars. The backside of the government giving almost a half price to the EV car buyers is that they don't subsidize charging infrastructure. So that if you regard them as the leading country in electric car penetration, it's not the country with the most charging, the largest charging infrastructure. So they actually lag a little bit behind, even though they have sort of lived with this drawback for a few years and learned to cope with it. So the market in Norway is actually larger than you can think. We're also driving technology. As we said, we share fewer simultaneous chargers with our technique, and this is what we delivered today or in the past 2 years with the AC technology. Coming up next year is the same thinking with DC, so you can have a centralized DC charger, and you can share that with 5 to 25 different parking lots, that you sort of don't get this hurdle of reparking your car when you want to fast charge your car. And we have financial targets for next year. That is, we hope to reach 200 million SEK in revenues, and that's a quite significant increase in what we have in actual revenue for this year. Okay, so Olof, I think that was all of it on my presentation. 18 minutes into your slot that you've given me.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Christian. Very interesting, and it certainly looks like you have a solution that at least I haven't seen someone else talk about. What are when you go selling the product, what are the main sort of obstacles to get a sale, or the main worries with customers that you have to be able to answer before selling?
In the past 2 years or up to today, I think, and still with this question arises in all customer meetings where we meet at the first time, is, okay, why haven't anybody else except you done this? So, okay, why are you doing it? You say you're fantastic, but no one else does this. And I tend to say, okay, that's the same thing that happened once or happened many times before, but a recent example is, okay, you sold and bought CDs, and before that was LPs. Why should I buy or download and pay for a Spotify app? I think that's not exactly the same thing, because we still need the hardware. But instead of sort of buying the box and, you know, looking for a box, what type of charging box should you buy? It's more of, okay, you want to charge your car. How could you do that in the most cost efficient way, and how could you make that as easy as possible? So maybe that's the main question that we still meet. This, I think, if you ask us 1 year ahead, this is more the market has accepted our way of thinking much more than it has today.
Yeah, and on that, you talked about pending patents, and what will you be able to cover within a patent? With the whole, is there a risk that people will simply copy your way of doing it with the station and sort of leverage on that into several charging points, or will that be covered as well?
The easy answer to that question is that we have a method patent pending, meaning that we combine a way of doing this, both what we ask the customer to give us sort of information. So we ask the customer to provide us what type of car they want to charge. No one else does that really. How long will you be parking? So when do you want to use your car? And how many kilowatt hours, or how much of your battery in percentage do you want to preferably charge? And then we can charge with those less amount of simultaneous chargers, the cars in the right or in the reverse order. So we charge the cars that are going to be parked for the longest time at the end of sort of this priority cycle. And the next thing is that we sort of build a hardware infrastructure that shares those centralized chargers. And the patent, if approved, disables all other vendors to combine these two, both the information and the way of setting up the hardware. So they can do either, but not both.
Okay.
And this is what we're hoping for.
Yeah, excellent. And would that be a patent in Scandinavia, or would it cover a broader market?
It will cover broader market of, let's say, 20 plus countries that we selected. And in our patent portfolio in ChargeNode as a group, we also have a approved patent that could enable us to buy electricity both on a fixed price and on a variable price. We can, the possibility to combine this charging patent with the technology where we can buy electricity from the market at the guaranteed lowest price. We think we could have a really sweet spot, but those two patents live a little bit in symbiose. So that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, excellent. And if I, on the software and the app and how to connect to the customer, if I park in one of your spots, do I have to have your app to be able to charge my car, or will you let other people in, sort of?
Yeah, the answer is yes and no. If you're at your, if you have a sort of a car pool, you don't need to download the app, because then we don't have to associate the car charging with whom to sort of receive the money from. But so if you have a company pool of cars, you don't have to associate the charging cost to a specific car or person. So then we can charge your car anyway. But as soon as we need to associate the cost of the charging session with a person or a number of companies, then you need our app today. We're definitely open to have other vendors to sort of to charge the customer in that way economically, but they then need to give us those parameters that they don't take into account today. So what type of car, for how long are you going to be parked, and how much do you want to charge?
Understood. Are you looking at other services to add to this, to sort of expand the software subscription model and with other types of services?
I would say no. We have a challenge already in sort of listening to our customers, how we can make this more convenient, how we could build more functionality in the portal, and how we could actually scale both the software and the hardware to the market needs today. So we could more or less sell as many systems as we want, but the bottleneck right now is more the total delivery and the how can we put this hyper growth that we need to meet as the market is huge.
Yeah, that leads me to my last question before time is up. How do you work with the production, or have you outsourced? I assume you have outsourced the production to someone, and also with the funding round you just did, for how long do you think that will fund you? Will that be enough to take you to the 2022 targets?
Yeah, the first one, yes, sort of the manufacturing of those central units could be done by any sort of electrical appliances company. So that is a totally scalable model, even though it takes a little bit or a while for them to ramp up, even though we have the drawing or electrical drawing for this. The main bottleneck is putting those cabinets and central units onto the customer's parking lots or parking spaces, where we need an electrical installer or company service technicians to make this installation. And that is easier to do than the way normal charging boxes are done, but it's a different way. So it's, even though it's easier, it takes a little bit time for each and every partner in this, and we're building a partner network to learn this, and let's say to ramp up to speed to make them really earn money from this. It takes 2-3 installations before they're up and running. So that's the main bottleneck. And the next question, for how long will this 10 million euros last? We hope that it will hopefully last for 2-3 years, and that is more or less us putting the pedal down and full throttle for us. So it will be a challenge to grow that fast, even though we think we have the recipe for this.
Sounds great. Well, our time is up. Thank you very much, Christian Sandahl, ChargeNode. Very interesting to meet you. Seems like a fantastic company and fantastic idea. The product looks fantastic, and I'm looking forward to see it out there in the real world soon.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.